G'day, guys. This is another touch on the COVID or long COVID or pre-COVID type protective approaches and you know issues that people end up having with long COVID symptoms and stuff like that. So let's get stuck into it. Anyway, remember this sort of the incomplete systemic recovery metabolic um, phenoreversion in acute and post-acute phase non-hospitalized C19 patients, implications for assessment of post-acute C19 syndrome, as it's being called now. That's what it's called. That's what they call it, COVID-19 syndrome. Anyway, so this is not the study that we're going to look at. These are summary reports of lung function, dyspnea, cardiac abnormalities, liver dysfunction, thyroid dysfunction, so hyperkalemia. So you're even getting derangements of ions. That should tell you something. There's a special molecule that regulates ions. Don't we know that? Chronic fatigue, diabetes, sleep difficulties, hallucinations. Luckily, that's very rare and all that. We've covered this before, but it's just as a bit of a reminder for people just to sort of remember in regards to that. People haven't looked at this. I do encourage them to look at it. These are the sort of levels. I've done a previous video covering this, but that's not the one that I want to look at in that regard. Now, this is the stuff. So this is a review of the literature. This was published quite recently. So June the 8th, 2022. So there were people from Mexico, India, Saudi Arabia, some from the US that looked at this issue. So, and their title is Early Taurine Administration as a Means for Halting the Cytokine Storm Progression in COVID-19 Patients. And this does have a lot of ramifications and implications when it comes to long COVID. Around the world, more than 6.2 million individuals have died as a result of coronaviruses, diseases, 2019, COVID-19, according to the recent survey conducted amongst immunologists, epidemiologists, and virologists. This disease is expected to become endemic. It was considered a pandemic, which sort of in the more modern view, yes, sort of, a bit like the flu pandemics, but just within those ranges. So just keep that in mind. Very important. I mean, that's the world population 2020, which is really at the pinnacle of a C19 pandemic. And remember, the amount of people that died, 6.2 million. Divide that by 7,753, which is 7,753 million. Times 100 gives us 0.08. Got it? So 0.08. Just keep that in mind. That's the percentage of people that died globally. Okay, so now that's the world population back in 1918, 1.8 billion, sorry. Spanish flu, pretty much estimated ranges 17 million to 50 million and possibly as high as 100. Most commentators accept the 50 million. Most. Okay, so let's go for the 17 initially. Divide that by times 100. That's 0.9, nearly 1%. If we go for the lowest number, the 17, divide that by 0.08, that's 12 times greater in a younger population with less comorbidities, outdoors, healthier, with better vitamin D status and all that. So if you take all those things in, the numbers are profoundly different. 1918 was definitely nothing in all similar to 2019. Okay, it was not in the same range. It was more like a severe flu. Let's get it right. Okay, now if we go for the 50 mark, times 100, it was 2.78%. Okay, that's what most commentators actually believe it was in terms of the amount of people that died. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of the records from that period. That's why they talk about those other ranges, but it's more likely it's around the 50 million. It's more or less what they actually around that period talked about. In hindsight, because a lot of records has been, it's a bit like, the British study, a lot of the records got lost. And so the number was 19,000, the 89-90, but up to 29,000. Obviously, they had evidence for the 19,000, but not for the others. They definitely have evidence for the lower range, but they don't have for the higher ranges. But it could have even been more than 50. So there's your sort of level. In some countries it was even higher. Like in India, it was up to 5%. So it was quite devastating. Where was that? Anyway, somewhere in there, I'm not going to basically look for it. Now, so if people want to take a look, they can take a look themselves. It's quite severe. Let's put it that way. In that regard, the Spanish flu. So, when you divide that by 0.08, it's about nearly 35-fold. That is a massive order of difference. 35-fold, So it is substantially different. Statistically, it's just massive off the scale in that regard. So just keep that in mind. This is not as severe. It is severe. It is as severe as a flu infection, but there are differences in these mechanisms. And the reason, let me just cover this point, and I think it's really important. The reason it's different is that a lot of the other, like the flu, the common cold and stuff like that, they don't seem to have as a severe immunosenescence compared to COVID. Obviously, COVID doesn't have the immunosenescence of Ebola, as an example, that really damages severely the immune system, but it still has some immune senescence damaging effects. That's quite clear, and it seems it's all related to the spike. This is another reason why those vaccine replicating a lot of spikes could be an issue. You think so? In terms of immunosenescence, I'll leave you to ponder that point. I've already made my views on that in the past, without going too much into it. We live in a very precarious time of censorship. Anyway, let's move on. So according to a recent survey conducted, the implications that the disease could have continuous presence and or normal frequency in the population is quite high. Whether you subscribe to the lab option or the non-lab option, I'll leave that up to people to decide. Even in my own mind, the question mark is there. The more I've researched into the spike, it is concerning, but there is not much difference between the spike in C1, in the COVID-1, SARS-CoV-1, and the 2. There's just a slight change. Now, did that naturally occur, or was it modified? That's a real hard one, because not even virologists can make up their mind on that. So could have been either way. We don't know. In the end, does it really matter? Whether it got out of a lab or whether it actually had a natural origin doesn't really matter. Our real concern should be that it's going to be around for a while. That's the reality. It's mutated so much now and it's become so endemic. It's going to be around for many years. So we have to consider, how are we going to deal with this? If this is causing immunosenescence, that is damaging the immune system, that actually makes us very vulnerable to future cytokine storms if our immune system is becoming aged. What kills older people? Immunosenescence. An old, aged immune system that's been battered over many times for many years. Well, if COVID-19 can actually batter the immune system in a much shorter amount of time, it could actually reduce your lifespan. So, let alone replicating vaccines, but I'll leave that up to you, that actually produce a bigger spike load. Could that be aging your immune system as well, even more rapidly? I'll leave that up to you. Consider that when you have your next booster. Anyway, let's move on. So, pharmacological interventions to prevent the infection, as well as the treatment of patients at an early phase of illness to avoid hospitalization, are essential additions to the vaccines. I'd stick to the taurine. Taurine is known to inhibit the generation of all inflammatory mediators linked to the cytokine storm. And that's what they've actually looked at, the review of all the literature, and they've actually realized pretty much taurine's everywhere there, either regulating or inhibiting, which is, and most of the things it's sort of regulating, keeping it within the controlled fashion so it doesn't actually do too much damage. So it does the job of, of the immune system working properly without overreacting, misbehaving, or stuff like that, which we want. And that's where I like the synergy between taurine and vitamin D, because they work in a number of different ways, but synergistically they work perfectly on both the lung health. Remember the enzymes, the collagen degrading enzymes, MMPs, that operate within the within basically the matrix metalloproteinases, especially 2 and 9 that work in your lungs. They are regulated by vitamin D primarily, but there is a role there on the immune side. That means the cytokine, the type of the immune interaction with these enzymes, where the taurine part comes in. So this is the synergy. Fat-soluble vitamin like vitamin D regulating those enzymes. On the other hand, the immune response within that tissue being regulated by taurine. What a wonderful synergy. The sun and a steak. Perfect. It's like we were meant to be eating steaks out in the savannah. Yes, yes. I just had my mind wandered for a while. Anyway, back to the study. Neutrophil lactoferrin degranulation stimulated by taurine may have antiviral effects against SARS-CoV-2, limiting viral replication. Really important, isn't it, kiddies? You know, you can take a high dose, or let's say you can eat a big slab of meat, supplement a bit of taurine, and maybe you don't need ivermectin or anything like that to, because this will do the job, as I said. Nothing like a carnivore diet to basically stop SARS replicating. Yes. It is hypothesized that if taurine is administered early on the onset of C19 disease, it may stop the cytokine storm from progressing, lowering morbidity and mortality. So getting sicker or dying, basically. And that's the sort of stuff we want. We know the cytokine. We know cytokines. And this is, again, with the senescence. Senescence, again, produces cytokines. We know that taurine lowers cell senescence, but it also lowers immune senescence, and also, has a really important effect on keeping the immune system from going wonky against us. Yes, yes. Give me another steak, please. Yes. Basically, they should say a steak a day will keep the doctor away, not the apple. They got it wrong. The apple is, remember Eve took the apple and fell out of grace? Had she gone for a steak, she would have been in God's grace. Yes, yes, exactly. Don't you forget that. Those vagoons are going straight to you know where. Yes, with all that damn fruit, especially those apples. God. Anyway, back away from the religious stuff. Back to the study. In its critical stage of severe acute respiratory syndrome, may provoke deadly pneumonia. Yes, or through C19 disease caused by our dear CoV-2 infection is characterized by mortality rates of 2.2%. I disagree with that, as you know. That's people not dying from, but with, remember? And even their numbers, 6.2. Really? How did you come up with this figure? They pulled that out of a study, because this is a review of the literature. So there is going to be some stuff that I get a bit annoyed. But anyway, let's move on. Because this disease is more severe in aged patients and patients with underlying maladies, comorbidities, basically, diabetes, whatever, all these sort of things. Yes, but due to the kibble diet, for example, and the seed oils. Yes, nothing like some refined oil. For example, the mortality rate of patients with underlying health conditions was shown to reach 12%. I'm still a bit iffy on some of that question, but yes, it was much higher than the general average. That's true, but it does vary from country to country. So, it probably correlates much better with diet and than basically just sort of general conditions. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all that sort of stuff at the moment. That's for another day. Furthermore, C19 patients have developed acute respiratory distress syndrome, and mortality rates can be as high as 40 to 50%. Yes. Once they get into ICUs, especially with the current practices that are basically the experts, yes, our lowest common denominator of evidence, but our experts, they will apply the standard rules that have been brought down by the holy bureaucracy, medical bureaucracy, and you will apply those methods. You will not use vitamin D, a steak, or, oh, God forbid, an ivermectin. Yes, so basically, no wonder we're getting these rates. But anyway, that's for another day. Even through the factors involved in C19-mediated lung damage remain mostly unknown. In the published research, the phase cytokine storm or hyperinflammatory stage originates from the uncontrolled release of cytokines by a dysregulated immunological system that has been frequently associated with the related pathological alterations. In general terms, it represents the overactive immunological reaction distinguished by the production of interferon, interleukins, tumor necrosis factor, chemokines, and many other mediators. Such compounds are core components of well-preserved innate immunological response, essential for the effective removal of pathogens. The term cytokine storm refers to a scenario in which several cytokine releases are harmful to the host. So that's where the problem lies. So we will move on from there. And so really, that's sort of like hydrogen peroxide type things. And this is another mechanism. Oops. Part of that peroxide system. And that's the hypochlorous acid, which chloride. I think it's chloride. Is the component for that. But it's part of this, superoxide, hydrogen peroxide, all these sort of things. Yeah, it is. There it is. It is chloride. That are part of the components, releasing all this sort of stuff to kill off, the virus, basically, But when chemical reactions with blah, 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 MPO induces the synthesis HOXY all through for these, are used to cure bacteria and viruses. MPO can be released outside the cell, increasing the risk of tissue harm, basically causing tissue senescence. HOXY is oxidant with a highly reactivity and generalized consideration amount in the body has the reaction that it many times greater and most substrates than hydrogen peroxide, blah, blah, blah. And they talk about in vitro studies, how it increases NF, kappa B, TNF alpha, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, now, this is the part. Notably, taurine has been shown to prevent MPO degranulation. Okay, so neutrophil critical inflammatory cells cause tissue damage and a range of disease and disorders. I'll attach that if people want to look at when it comes to neutrophil degranulation. And safeguarding organs. And this is the critical part, so MMP selectively safeguarding from oxidative harm caused by exaggerated MPO release. This inhibition of MPO release produces a significant reduction in neutrophil extracellular traps. So the discovery of the taurine-mediated inhibition of MPO, got it, release produced a significant reduction in nets in. So we saw that net generation was discovered to be increased in severe cases, and that is reduced. And it's linked to immunothrombosis, acute lung injury, acute respiratory distress syndrome. So all these things that we see with long COVID symptoms and stuff like that is really, again, taurine's playing a role in inhibiting the some of these parts are part of the immune response, but you don't want, like outrageous response. You want, controlled. You want the immune system to be under control and regulated to respond, sort out things, but not do too much damage. That's where both taurine and vitamin D, but in different ways, are playing a role. Where vitamin D is playing a role from the regulating some of those enzymes, taurine is playing a role by directly regulating immune parts of the immune system, which is really important. Let alone it keeps immunosenescence down as well. And it's all the naive T cells. You want less of the cytokine T cells. You want more of the naive T cells. And those ones being kept healthy by taurine is really important. Anyway, that's all about the macrophage. People could read that. And so we're not covering too much. Taurine neutralizes Hockey-induced tissue damage. Is formed with a destroys bacteria and viruses. It could also be hazardous since oxidizes many biological components, blah, blah, blah. Taurine chemically reacts with Hockey in leukocytes to produce taut cell, more balanced. Got it? Remember what I've been saying a long time. Taurine is a regulator, regulates the immune system, regulates all these responses. It prevents overexpression. You still need an immune response. Still even need the immune system to go out and sort things out. But you don't want it to go haywire and start attacking everything inside. This is again why taurine, or basically eating a friggin' steak, being on a carnivore diet, reduces autoimmunity. So the sun because vitamin D is also related to autoimmunity, but also taurine as well. So a steak a day will keep the autoimmune doctor away. So a more balanced, less aggressive, specific oxidation component with Hockey. So you're not getting like massive release of these peroxide type things, superoxide and all these sort of things, literally just ravaging your body. Yes, it kills a virus, but also does a lot of damage to healthy cells, immune parts of the immune system as well. So you really want to keep that within a controlled way. In biological systems, CI is thought to operate as a general antioxidant scavenger, protecting cells from self-destruction during activities that create excessive Taurine may also protect epithelial cells of the lung against hypochlorite, mediated by lowering chlorination of cell components rather than preventing, so it's sort of lowering. It's not like eliminating it, but it's lowering those sort of factors or those sort of components that are used to deal with a virus or a bacteria or whatever. They still need to work to deal with these sort of things if they're misbehaving or in the wrong place, but at the same time, they need to be, regulated. Again, this is the regulatory role of taurine. Taurine is a master regulator. As I said, it's master number one. It is the like you could say the the supreme molecule in your body regulating everything. basically, in a sense, if you want to call it that way. Let's get religious about it. Taurine protects against lung damage by mitigating oxidative stress. Anyway, I'm not going to go through that. That's, you know, your tumor necrosis factor A, you know, are well known to be involved in these sort of things. You know, taurine has been shown to counteract reductions in glutathione. So, you know, it helps improve glutathione status. So it prevents, you know, the killing of things in the body, unless they're far too gone, and then it has an apoptotic effect, and we've discussed that in other stuff. You know, in research mimicking lung damage, taurine increased superoxide dismutase. There you go. Catalase function. So anybody that knows anything about the internal intracellular antioxidant system, what's the intercellular antioxidant system? Glutathione, superoxide dismutase, catalase. These are the intracellular antioxidant systems that really deal with things. Even though I use taurine, this isn't really, maybe this is the thing that's actually preventing my hair from going grey, even though dealing with the peroxide, anything that has actually been induced by the UV. It's probably slowing it down, even though I've got those genetics and everybody in the family goes in their 30s white-haired. But anyway, it is what it is. Genetics. Thanks, relatives. Thanks, mum. Anyway, but you know, maybe a steak a day is actually, this is the way a steak is actually lowering your hair from going. It's the taurine basically in the steak. You know, I know that Japanese and Asians consume a lot of fish, which is much higher in taurine than red meat. Maybe that's their secret why they don't go grey like Westerners. I'm speculating. I'm not saying it is. Could be other factors as well. I'm just speculating. Okay, so don't get your, you know what, in a knot. Can't even say those words anymore. The N word. Anyway, it's so difficult making, not being able to be as colourful as I used to be. Yes, censorships are such hard things. In the endoplasmic reticulum, you know, it decreases stress there. I've talked about this before. You know, that's the stuff around the nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum. That's where the ribosomes are, where, you know, protein, you know, where you synthesize all your enzymes and stuff like that with messenger RNA, and then taurine goes in there and makes sure that things don't get misfolded. It also decreases stress stuff in there. And we know that C19 actually causes the endoplasmic reticulum, particularly the primary one where you're getting these proteins being formed. And that's where also it actually is trying to reproduce itself using those mechanisms. Well, that's where there's a lot of damage being done by C19. And we know that taurine basically prevents that, lowers that. So yeah, it's playing a big role in that regard. Acute lung damage is a frequent manifestation of gram-negative bacterial infections that are primary origin of disease complication for humans. And basically, we know that glutathione, catalase, peroxidase, superoxide dismutase, all these things play a role in protecting the lungs against endotoxin as well. And what increases taurine? By eating more meat. So this is where the carnivore diet is actually protective against endotoxin. Again, another myth that the vagoons push around, oh, endotoxemia, you know, in animal foods. No, it's the actual opposite. You eat enough meat, you get enough taurine, you're basically going to lower your risk, it's actually on a veganurized or SAD diet, which basically has less than 30% animal products, and we're talking about very highly processed crap generally, that where that problem is going to happen, So you don't see it in tribal people. Yes, the sun and the steak diet, or lifestyle, to be more precise. Yes, take your spear with you. So I'm not going to cover this. This just sort of contributes to the resolution of inflammation, stimulates lactoferrin, and we know lactoferrin is really important. Lactoferrin, that's another thing in milk, and it gives rise to interferon, which is important in another part of the immune system. There's your matrix metalloproteinase 9, and I don't think they only covered 9. They didn't cover 2, from memory. It is a while ago that I actually read this, and I just remembered it because somebody actually asked me, put a comment about long COVID symptoms and all that. It was Sarah, and I said, I better make a video covering this. So, well, it was in my C19 folder, and I forgot all about it. There's too many things to do. Life's too short, unfortunately. Anyway, so that's pretty much it, guys, in terms of the sort of stuff. It really comes back to maintain a good carnivorous lifestyle and basically good vitamin D status, pretty much. I think it's very important. I know she's not doing carnivore. I don't know how much meat. Look, as I said, I don't sit around moralizing and what people make, what sort of choices you make. It's your life after all. I'm here to just basically lay out the evidence and information and good solid information and say, well, consider this as a better lifestyle. I mean, most people that have got extreme conditions, like our Amber O'Hearn with bipolar, she went on a carnivore diet and less highly cooked. She's more a bit towards so her meat will have higher taurine. That has a calming effect, and taurine does affect a lot of those pathways and genes that are related to bipolar and schizophrenia and many other things. And so a lot of these conditions improve on a carnivore diet, and that's what people are seeing. Obviously, people like her, they either stick to that or they're back on the meds. Simple as that. Now, the majority of people are not that far, not in that sort of condition. And so, they'll do 2 things: either periodically come and go from the carnivore sort of space in terms of their dietary approach. They won't be consistent, or they'll occasionally do some cheats. I used to do more in the past. I sort of reduced them quite a bit now. Bart's even become even more religious than me on keeping it cleaner in that regard. But at the end of the day, fundamentally, if you want to resolve conditions, disease, if you want to basically improve your health, you got to consider these as important steps. Now, obviously, you're going to have relatives that are on SAD diets, on other diets, vegetarian diets. There's a lady that she's vegetarian. I know her from down in the Salamanca market. I have a bit of a chat with her. I had a bit of a chat today as I was coming back from the markets. And, she's been doing taurine, and she noticed the difference and all that, and she's going to give to a kid as well, which is nice. So, at the end of the day, I just want people to be healthier and better. And obviously, COVID's going to be around for some time. It's not going away. I don't, the opportunity to eliminate it has come and gone. Whether it was possible in the first place, I don't know. Personally, don't know. We'll probably never know. But the reality is now it is endemic. It's going to be around. It does seem to cause some immunosenescence and issues there. And I think that we need to get the message out to people that a good vitamin D status and a good taurine or animal-based diet status is going to be better for people. Now, not everybody will be able to do the carnivore diet. If they can get more animal foods in their diet, it's going to be a better thing. If they can basically consider supplementing taurine, maybe an alternative. You may have relatives, friends that are probably not willing to go all the way and take up their spear and start going out, even going to the extreme level, like some people, but anyway, we won't talk about those people. But, it's something that you can recommend. It doesn't cost much. And at the end of the day, if it improves their sleep, their immune system, it protects them, it reduces the potential for them to be getting into cytochrome state. It reduces immunosenescence, which means it helps improve their immune system. As I said, I do believe that people that have got long COVID symptoms, they should do a 3-day fast, basically. You need to do a 3-day fast, guys. And then come on and really ramp up vitamin D, taurine. And I would say I would go, without recommending, this is my personal views, I would go minimal 10,000 IUs. If I were personally, I'd go 20 for a week, and then I'd drop to 10 for 6 months before going down to 5. And then I would definitely, and obviously somebody's heavier, they may need to take higher amounts to get their levels up, or get out in the sun more often. If it's summer, God, take advantage of free vitamin D, and why supplement if you've got the sun? And on the other hand, you've also got the taurine. I would definitely go up to 10 personally. I can't recommend that. Usually as a standard thing, I usually recommend 3, which is sort of 3 to 4. I can justify that and say, if you eat enough of this food, you'll get to those levels. So nobody can argue against that. But when it comes to higher, they can. But as I said, rats up to 30 grams equivalent for a 70 kilo, 154-pound person. So I'll leave that up to people to, on that. I can't recommend anything. This is not medical advice. It's just my personal opinion that if I was in that situation, I would definitely be taking at least 10 grams per day, split in like sort of 3 doses, 3, 3, and 4, something along those lines. And the reason for that is because I would want to really sort out things quite on the fast and really build up my naive T cells, protect my immune system, regulate my immune system, and actually boost my intracellular antioxidant system as well. Because, most of those things, if you've got long COVID, are going to be suppressed, are going to be to some degree compromised. I would also consider taking lactoferrin supplements and get your meat up, your protein up. Really important in order to build a new immune system, in order to build the sort of the structures, the mechanisms, the internal tools that are going to basically heal the damage. You need more protein. If you've actually sustained lung injury, well, you need protein to repair that. You need the regulatory effect of, the micronutrients and the nutrients you'll get from an animal-based diet, but you also need additional protein. So somebody repairing and healing from C19 really needs more protein. And I know from my brother's partner, she basically did that, but obviously it's not on a carnivore diet. But when she actually added in essential amino acid supplementation, she noticed a difference. You still need protein. Protein is an important building block, and most people undereat protein. They don't get enough in their diet, so it's important that we add that component in as well. So it's yes, we need the regulation of the enzymes. We need the regulation of the immune system, but we still need the building blocks, guys. This is where combining the carnivore lifestyle with sun salt and meat is my little pet slogan. For everyone out there, most of my regulars know exactly what I mean. Most new people, basically, I'll let you work that out yourself, and the more you look at my material, you'll realize that yourself, that it is really important to support good immune function. It's not going to do it on its own. You need to give the body the materials to actually run a good immune system and maintain a healthy body. Anyway, we'll leave it at that, and that's pretty much the wrap up. See yous.